You will hear 4 different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. At the end of each recording, you will get some time to check your work. The test is in 4 parts. Now turn to Part 1. Part 1. You will hear a conversation between a new resident and a receptionist at a community centre. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
Good morning and welcome to Greenfield Community Centre. How can I help you?
Hi there, my name's Julie Anderson and I'm new to the area. I was hoping to get some information about the facilities and activities that you offer at the community centre.
Of course, Julie, I'd be happy to help. We have a wide range of facilities and activities here at Greenfield. What sort of things are you interested in?
Well, I'm quite into fitness, so I'd love to know about any gym or exercise classes you have.
Great. We actually have a fully equipped gym that's open 7 days a week. It's got all the latest cardio and strength training equipment. The gym membership is £30 per month, which includes access to the gym and all our group fitness classes.
That sounds reasonable. What kind of classes do you offer?
We have a variety of classes to suit different interests and fitness levels. Some of our most popular ones are yoga, Zumba, and spin classes. We also have a new high-intensity interval training class that's been very popular lately.
Oh, that sounds interesting. How often do these classes run?
Most classes run daily, with multiple time slots to accommodate different schedules. For example, we have early morning classes for those who like to exercise before work, lunchtime sessions and evening classes too.
That's great. I like to swim as well. Do you have a pool?
Yes, we do. We have a 25-metre indoor pool that's open year-round. We offer open swim times, lane swimming for those who want to do laps, and various aqua fitness classes. The pool is also heated, so it's comfortable even in the winter months.
Wonderful. Are there any specific times for lane swimming?
Yes, we have dedicated lane swimming times. They're usually early in the morning from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. and then again in the evening from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. These times can vary slightly on weekends, so it's always best to check our schedule.
I see. And what about facilities for other sports?
We have quite a few. There's a large sports hall where we host basketball, badminton and volleyball. We also have 4 outdoor tennis courts and a 5-a-side football pitch. These can all be booked in advance.
That's impressive. Do you offer any coaching or lessons for these sports?
Absolutely, we have qualified instructors for most sports. For instance, we offer tennis lessons for all ages and skill levels. We also have a very popular basketball coaching program for children and teenagers.
That's good to know. I have 2 children, and I'm sure they'd be interested in some activities.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 7 to 10.
Now, do you have anything specifically for kids?
We certainly do. We run a variety of after-school and weekend activities for children. There's an arts and crafts club, a drama group, and various sports teams. We also have a popular science club where kids can do fun experiments and learn about different scientific concepts.
Oh, my son would love that. He's really into science. How often does the science club meet?
The science club meets every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's for children aged 7 to 12, and it's run by a local science teacher. The kids really enjoy it.
That sounds perfect. Now, I work from home sometimes, and I was wondering if you have any facilities for that. Sometimes it's nice to get out of the house.
Yes, we understand that need. We actually have a co-working space available. It's a quiet area with desks, Wi-Fi, and printing facilities. You can rent a desk by the day or get a monthly membership if you plan to use it regularly.
That's brilliant. I'll definitely look into that. One last thing. Do you have any social events or clubs for adults? I'm keen to meet new people in the area.
Absolutely. We have several social clubs that meet regularly. There's a book club that meets monthly, a film club that watches and discusses movies every week, and a gardening club that's very active, especially in the spring and summer months. We also host regular community events like quiz nights and seasonal celebrations.
That all sounds wonderful. How do I go about joining or trying out some of these activities?
It's quite simple. For most activities, you can just show up and pay a one-off fee to try it out. If you decide you want to join regularly, you can sign up for a membership. We offer different types of memberships, depending on what you're interested in. The most popular is our all-inclusive membership, which gives you access to all facilities and classes for a monthly fee.
Well, that was quite an informative session. Thank you so much.
That is the end of part 1. You now have some time to check your answers. Now turn to part 2. Part 2. You will hear a volunteer called Gabby talking about her experience at the Riverside Animal Rescue Center. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Welcome everyone. Today I'll be sharing my journey as a volunteer at the Riverside Animal Rescue Center. It all started 2 years ago when I decided to leave my stressful corporate job in the city. I had been working as a financial analyst, but I felt like my life lacked meaning and fulfillment. I wanted to do something that would make a real difference. I've always had a deep love for animals, so moving to Riverside and joining the Animal Rescue Center seemed like the perfect fit. The Riverside Animal Rescue Center was established over 20 years ago by a dedicated animal lover who donated a significant portion of her inheritance to set it up. This generous donation was crucial because as a nonprofit organization, the center relies heavily on donations and volunteer support to keep running. When I first applied to be a volunteer, I had to undergo a comprehensive training program. The training included everything from basic animal care to emergency medical procedures. One part of the training that I found particularly intense was the first aid training for animals. We had to learn how to administer CPR and other emergency treatments, which was quite daunting at first. On a typical day, my duties include feeding the animals, cleaning their enclosures, and assisting with medical treatments. One of my favorite tasks is taking the dogs out for walks. It's rewarding to see their excitement when they realize they are going outside. We have a wide variety of animals at the center, from dogs and cats to birds and even some exotic animals like iguanas and snakes. Each animal has its own story, and it's heartbreaking to see what some of them have been through. but it's also incredibly rewarding to be a part of their recovery journey and see them find loving homes. One of the main challenges we face is managing the influx of animals. There are times when we are operating at full capacity and have to turn away animals in need, which is always difficult. To help alleviate this, I often organize adoption events in the community to find homes for our animals. These events are crucial as they help raise awareness and generate much-needed funds for the center.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen carefully and answer questions 17 to 20.
Another critical aspect of my role is educating the public about animal welfare. I give regular talks at schools and community centers about the importance of responsible pet ownership and the impact of animal cruelty. It's essential to instill these values in the younger generation. The training provided by the center is ongoing and quite rigorous. We have regular workshops on animal behavior and handling techniques which have greatly enhanced my confidence and ability to deal with different situations. One memorable training session involved simulating a fire emergency where we had to evacuate the animals quickly and safely. This experience was invaluable as it prepared us for real-life emergencies. Since I started volunteering, I've formed strong bonds with both the animals and my fellow volunteers. The camaraderie among us is like a tight-knit family. We support each other through the tough times, and this sense of community is incredibly motivating. What I find most rewarding, though, is seeing the animals thrive and go to their forever homes. The colder months can be particularly challenging as that's when we see an increase in abandoned pets. But it's also the time when our efforts feel most impactful, knowing that we are providing warmth and care to those in need. So, if any of you are looking to make a difference and have a love for animals, I highly recommend getting involved with an animal rescue center. It's hard work, but the rewards are immeasurable.
That is the end of part 2. You now have some time to check your answers. Now turn to part 3. Part 3. You will hear two students called Mark and Julia discussing a presentation they plan to do on recycling electronic waste. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Hi Julia, did you get the copy of the article on recycling electronic waste that I emailed you?
Yeah, it's here. I've had a look at it.
So, do you think it's a good topic for our presentation?
Well, before I started reading it, I thought recycling electronic waste, well, although it's quite interesting, perhaps there isn't enough to say about it because we just put old gadgets in recycling bins, and that's about it.
But there's much more to it than that.
I realize that now, and I'm keen to research the topic more.
That's great.
One of the things I didn't realize until I read the article was just how many electronic devices get recycled.
Well, a lot of people upgrade their gadgets all the time now. They have become more disposable than before.
I know. I guess they are designed to have a short lifespan, but don't you think they should be more durable?
Actually, I think it's more about keeping up with technology trends. People want the latest models.
So do you keep your devices a long time?
Yes, though I do tend to use my old devices for backup purposes, but I must admit I've recycled some perfectly good gadgets that still work fine, just because they're outdated. That's awful, isn't it?
I think it's common because there's so much choice. The article did say that recent sales of electronics have increased enormously.
That didn't surprise me.
No, but then it said that the amount of recycled electronic waste has fallen. It's 8% now compared to a previous level of 15%. That doesn't seem to make sense.
That's because not everything goes through the recycling process. Some devices just aren't good enough to refurbish for one reason or another and get rejected.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30. Now listen carefully and answer questions 25 to 30.
So let's find some examples in the article of electronic waste that was rejected for recycling.
Okay, I think there are some in the interview with the recycling manager. Yeah, here it is.
Let's start with the smartphones. What did he say about those?
He said they were probably expensive, the screens were cracked and the batteries were leaking. It looked like someone had only used them for a short time, but the damage made them too costly to repair.
Okay. And the laptops? What was wrong with them?
Apparently the keyboards were worn, but that wasn't the problem. One of the screens was completely shattered. It had obviously been dropped. I suppose even refurbished laptops should look the same.
Sure. Then there were the tablets.
Oh yes, we're told to remove the batteries when we put them in a recycling bin, but people often don't bother.
You'd think it would have been easy to replace the battery, but it wasn't. That was a shame because they were otherwise in good condition.
The smartwatches were interesting. He said they looked like they'd been worn constantly.
Yeah, weren't they scratched?
Not exactly. One of the straps was completely broken.
Well, we could certainly use some of those examples in our presentation to explain why 85% of electronic waste that people take to recycling centers or bins get thrown into landfill. What did you think about the project his team set up to avoid this by making new devices out of the good parts of old ones?
It sounded like a good idea. They get so many devices, they should be able to match parts. I wasn't surprised that it failed, though. I mean, who wants to buy second-hand electronics, really? Think of all the data security issues you could face.
Well, people didn't refuse them for that reason, did they? It was because the parts of the devices were just not compatible.
They still managed to ship them overseas, though.
That's another area we need to discuss.
You know, I used to consider this topic just from my own perspective by thinking about my own recycling behavior without looking at the bigger picture. So much happens once devices leave the recycling area.
It's not as simple as you first think, and we can show that by taking a very different approach to it.
Absolutely. So, let's discuss.
That is the end of part 3. You now have some time to check your answers. Now turn to part 4. Part 4. You will hear part of a lecture on the conservation of tigers in Sundarbans National Park. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Today we're going to talk about Bengal tigers in the Sundarbans National Park. Now this is a fascinating place spreading through India and Bangladesh, and it's home to one of the most iconic big cats in the world. But here's the thing, protecting these magnificent creatures isn't as simple as you might think. Let's start with how researchers track these tigers. They use a mix of old school methods and cutting-edge technology. You've got your traditional tracking, sure, but they're also using things like camera traps and satellite collars. It's crucial not to rely on just one method, though. Why? Well, if you focus too much on, say, camera traps, you might end up with some serious oversight, and you could miss out on important stuff like changes in what the tigers are eating or incidents where tigers and humans come into conflict. Now, when we talk about saving these tigers, we're not just thinking about the big cats themselves. It's a much bigger picture. We need to look at the whole ecosystem, the mangroves, the waterways, and don't forget the local people who've been living alongside these tigers for generations. The best conservation strategies, they're the ones that tick multiple boxes. We want to manage resources in a sustainable way, cut down on those scary human-tiger encounters, and maybe even boost the local economy through ecotourism. But here's something really important. We've got to protect those mangroves. They're not just tiger habitat, they're also nature's defense against flooding. With climate change raising sea levels, these mangroves are crucial in coastal areas. It's a win-win situation. So where should we focus our efforts in the Sundarbans? It's tempting to pour all our resources into areas with lots of tigers and few people, but hang on a minute, we can't ignore the edges of tiger territory. If we only protect the core areas and neglect the peripheral regions, we could end up with isolated tiger populations. And that's a recipe for more human-tiger conflict in the areas we've overlooked. To make smart decisions about where to focus, we need good data. I'm talking detailed maps that show everything from vegetation types to where the prey animals are and where people have settled. But hold on. There is a very good technology called the Geographic Information System, or GIS in short, which is a game changer here. In the Sundarbans, they're using it to figure out crucial tiger corridors and how climate change might affect where tigers can live in the future. Now, let me tell you about a project that's making a real difference. It's called the Tiger Widows Initiative. Sadly, in the Sundarbans, it's not uncommon for women to lose their husbands to tiger attacks. This project helps these women find new ways to make a living that don't involve going into the forest. One of the coolest things they're doing is teaching these women beekeeping. It's brilliant because it gives them an income, but it also helps pollinate the mangrove plants. Talk about killing two birds with one stone. This project has been so successful that universities are now offering special courses in this kind of community-based conservation. It's really changing how we think about protecting wildlife. Another great example is the Sundarbans Fishermen's Community Radio Project. Now, this is really clever. They've set up a radio station that broadcasts information about where tigers have been spotted, what the weather's doing, and how to fish sustainably. They've trained local young people in broadcasting, and it's making a huge difference. Fishermen are safer because they know where the tigers are, and they're also learning to take care of the environment. But it's not just about safety. These radio programs are doing something really special. They're helping to preserve traditional knowledge about the Sundarbans. It's bringing together scientific approaches to conservation with the wisdom of people who've lived in this unique place for generations. And here's something that might surprise you. The tiger conservation in the Sundarbans is actually helping in the fight against climate change. Those mangrove forests, they're incredible at carbon storage. By protecting tiger habitat, we're also protecting one of nature's best tools for soaking up greenhouse gases. With all this exciting information, we reach at the end of this lecture. Does anyone got any questions?
That is the end of part 4. You now have some time to check your answers.